Good morning and welcome to our Good Friday service. The service will begin shortly.
Good morning and welcome to our Good Friday service. We begin by lighting of the Christ candle. We light this candle as we enter a story of shadows, a story of voices raised, of silence held, of love that does not leave. This flame, it will flicker against what is coming, fragile and steady and real. We do not rush past this moment. We need Good Friday, so we do not look away. We light this candle and prepare to stay. Our opening hymn this morning is Voices United 614 in Suffering Love. Voices in our call to worship. We come into this space quietly, not because there is nothing to say,
but because there is too much.
We come carrying the weight of the world and the weight of this story.
A story we think we know, and yet it meets us differently each time.
We gather not to rush ahead, not to fix what cannot be fixed,
but to stay, to witness, to be present.
So let us enter this sacred time together.
Open, honest, and willing to remain.
To join your hearts in our gathering prayer. God of presence,
on this day we're feel small. We stand at the edge of a story that is heavy and holy and hard. Slow us down. Quiet what distracts us. Open something within us, so that we might not turn away from the suffering before us, or the truth within us. Be with us as we listen, as we reflect, as we remember. Amen.
We continue with our unlikely witnesses for today. And our first witness is Pilate. This reading comes from the book of Luke, chapter 23, verses 1 to 25. Then the assembly rose as a body and brought Jesus before Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man misleading our nation, opposing the payment of taxes to Caesar and saying that he himself is the Messiah, a king." Then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered, "You say so." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no basis for an accusation against this man." But they were insistent and said, "He stirs it up by teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee where he even began in this place." When Pilate heard this, he asked whether the man was a Galilean. And when he learned that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him off to Herod, who was himself in Jerusalem at that time. Herod questioned him at some length, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the scribes stood by vehemently, accusing him. Even Herod and his soldiers treated him with contempt and mocked him. Then he put an elegant robe on him and sent him back to Pilate. Pilate then called together the chief priests and the leaders and the people and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is misleading the people. And here I have examined him in your presence and have not found this man guilty of your charges against him. Neither has Herod. Indeed, he has done nothing to deserve death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." And they all shouted out together, "Away with this fellow! Release Barabbas for us!" Pilate, wanting to release Jesus, addressed them again, but they kept shouting, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" The third time he said to them, "Why? What evil has he done? I have found in him no ground for the sentence of death. I will therefore have him flogged and release him." But they kept urgently demanding with loud shouts that he should be crucified. And their voices prevailed. So Pilate gave his verdict that their demand should be granted. He released the man they asked for, the one imprisoned for insurrection and murder, and he handed Jesus over as they wished. Pilate stands in that uneasy space between knowing and acting. He asks the questions, he listens, he even names that something about this situation doesn't sit right. And yet he never quite steps fully into it. Instead, he shifts and he hesitates and he looks for an exit that will cost him the least. There's a kind of quiet calculation happening. What will keep the peace? What will keep the crowd settled? What will keep his own position intact? And so the decision is made. Not with conviction, but with release. He lets the moment carry forward without him. It's tempting to see Pilate as distant from us, but there's something uncomfortably familiar here. How often do we recognize what is right and still choose the path that asks less of us? Not out of cruelty, but out of weariness or fear, or the hope that someone else will step in. Pilate doesn't drive the story forward with force, he simply doesn't stop it. He will respond by staying seated while we sing verse 1 of Voices United 182. Stay with us through the night.
The next witness comes with the criminals, based on Luke 23, verses 32 to 43. Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing, and the people stood by watching. But the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who was hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom." He replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise."
They hang there, side by side, sharing the same fate, the same pain, the same final hours. From the outside, their stories look almost identical, and yet something profoundly different unfolds between them. One turns outward in anger, pushing against the moment, demanding something, anything, to change. The other turns inward, not with resignation, but with a kind of clarity. There is no pretending left. There is no posturing. Just a quiet, honest naming of what is. And in that honesty, something unexpected happens. A connection forms. A brief exchange, almost easy to miss, and yet it holds a depth that echoes far beyond the moment. It reminds us that even at the very edge of life, there is still room for something new. Not a reversal of circumstances, not an escape from suffering, but a shift in how one is held within it. Two people, same moment, and grace finds its way in differently to each. We'll sing the second verse of Voices United 188.
Stay with us through Witness 3, the soldiers. John 19, verses 23 and 24. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, one for each soldier. They also took his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who will get it. This was to fulfill what the scripture says. They divided my clothes among themselves, and for my clothing they cast lots.
They're close enough to touch the cross. Close enough to hear every word, to see every movement, to witness the full weight of what is happening. And yet there is a kind of distance that settles in. They divide the clothing, they cast lots, they continue on with what is expected of them. It is routine, almost ordinary in its own way. Another task to complete, another moment to move through. There's no dramatic cruelty here. No grand declaration, just a steady continuation of what they've been asked to do. And maybe that is what makes this moment linger. The realization that proximity does not always lead to awareness. That it is possible to stand in the presence of suffering and remain just far enough removed to not fully take it in. We know this kind of distance, the ways we keep ourselves occupied, focused, protected, the ways we stay near but not too near. The cross stands before them, and still it does not reach them. We respond with verse 3 of Voices United 182.
Our fourth witness is the Roman centurion, based on Luke 23, 44 through 47. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, while the sun's light failed and the curtains of the temple were torn in two. Then Jesus, crying out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, Certainly, this man was innocent.
From that same space, among the same people, something shifts. Not all at once, not loudly, but enough to be noticed. The centurion has many things, has seen many things. This is not his first execution, not his first moment of death, and yet something about this one is different. Something begins to settle in slowly as the sky darkens and the earth responds and the final breath is taken. And then almost simply he names it. Surely this man was innocent. It doesn't come early. It doesn't come when it might have changed the outcome. It comes at the end when everything is already unfolded. And still it matters. Because recognition does not always arrive when we expect it. Sometimes it comes after we have watched, after we have stood at a distance, after we have missed what is right in front of us. And when it does come, it has a way of cutting through everything else. In the end, it is the unlikely voice, the outsider, who sees most clearly. We will respond with verse 1 again of Voices United 182.
Witnesses 5, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, taken from John 19, verses 38 to 42. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there.
By now, the energy has shifted. The crowd has begun to disperse. The urgency has passed. What remains is quiet and a kind of stillness that settles over everything. This is where Joseph steps forward, and Nicodemus, two figures who have remained mostly in the background until now. Not absent, but not fully visible either. They're careful, they're reserved, watching from a distance, until this moment. Because now there is no crowd to blend into, no noise to hide behind, only a body, a need, and the risk of being seen. What they offer is simple, almost understated. They take what has been discarded, what has been left, and they treat it with dignity. There is no miracle here, no reversal, no sudden shift, just the quiet, deliberate act of showing up when it would be easier not to. And maybe that is what love looks like in the end. Not loud or certain, but present and willing to remain. We will stand and sing together our closing hymn, Voices United 144. Were you there?
Thank
quiet of this day. The story is not finished, but it is not ours to resolve. Stay near to what is hard, to what is unfinished, to what asks something of you. And carry this with you, not to solve it, not to rush past it,